El Chapo just exposed El Mencho. El Chapo and El Mencho, two of the most famous gangsters in the whole world, are supposed to stand in front of them. But there can't be two kings in one forest. And here, one king is planning to get away from another. Yes, everyone, the former king El Chapo has just exposed El Mencho, which is going to change everything about El Mencho. If you want to know more about it, then follow this video till the end.
Major suspect contributing to the U.S. drug epidemic. The Drug Enforcement Administration says the drug lord known as El Mencho is one of its top targets. The U.S.
The story of May. On a balmy day in May, members of the Mexican drug cartel that was just beginning to flower launched an assault. They used burning tankers to block more than 30 routes in the city of Guadalajara, thereby creating a boxing match inside the city. They carried out their attack on banks and ATMs in broad daylight and set fire to both of the targets. When members of the military came looking for them, members of the cartel used RPGs to bring down a chopper, and then they killed the soldiers who were inside. It was a frightening demonstration of power that was carried out in a blatant manner. Everyone was in a state of terror. No one knew what was going to happen next, says Pedro Guerrero Haro, a forensic investigator who ended up sifting through the debris. No one understood what the next step was going to be. At the same time that authorities are rejoicing over the capture of Joaquin Guzman Lora, the drug lord more commonly known as El Chapo, experts say that an even more dangerous figure is on the loose. This individual has not been apprehended, but it is believed that they were responsible for orchestrating the bloody siege in Guadalajara. El Mencho is the nickname given to him, however his real name is Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes.
The convicted Sinaloa cartel boss, who was responsible for 80% of Chicago's illegal drug trade, he was wronged by U.S. prosecutors or die in prison on a life sentence for racketeering conspiracy.
Reaching commanding heights. Over the course of the previous several years, he has established himself at a level of commanding heights within the landscape of Mexican narco-trafficking, rivaling the influence that El Chapo once had. It would seem that rocket launchers are a part of the cartel that he controls, which has made the decision to capture power by whatever means necessary. According to Tristan Reed, a Mexican security expert for the global intelligence company Stratfor, he is the top criminal leader right now in Mexico. The drug battle. In a recent drug battle in which unstable and ever-shifting narco networks fight it out in an ever more ruthless form, it requires a certain level of intellect to plot your way through the chaos and figure out where you want to go. Even though the federales have had some success in recent years in picking off the jefes, the catch and release saga of El Chapo being a case in point, even their victories have a downside, and that each one basically creates a power vacuum. This is despite the fact that the federales have had mixed success in recent years. A swarm of lesser cartels is vying with one another to fill it, and in the process, they are inflicting havoc on the streets of Mexico. This is because they're competing for market share, and because the medication supply chain now extends from the United States to China and Europe, the stakes have only become higher in recent years. El Mencho has demonstrated a fox-like skill for adjusting to situations. Whether it's switching allegiances or moving on to meth from heroin, all while remaining unknown. This opportunity has been presented to him as a result of all the upheaval and transformation that has taken place. In point of fact, El Mencho and his Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generacion have extended their area from coast to coast, becoming the most global of all the Mexican suppliers, despite the fact that it hasn't received as much attention outside of Mexico. Everard Mead, the director of the Transborder Institute at the University of San Diego, had this to say about El Chapo. He's distinct from those who may want to be feared but aren't aiming to construct a territorial dynasty. El Mencho is a businessman with a military attitude. He has concentrated on tightening and expanding his supply chain while destroying rivals or anybody else who could stand in the way. It is said that the kingpin used to work as a police officer in either the city of Aguililla or the city of Urupan, both of which are located in the Mexican state of Michoacan. This is a theory that is almost as much legend as it is fact. According to the United States Treasury Department, El Mencho served time in a United States jail for conspiracy to distribute heroin. And this is the allegation that led to the freezing of his assets back in April.
The arrest of the Mexican drug kingpin known as El Mencho. He's blamed for a flood of narcotics into the U.S. And in tonight's Eye on America, Adriana Diaz takes us on the hunt for this dangerous drug lord.
Aside from that, he has been successful in evading capture by the police, which is in stark contrast to his 24-year-old son, El Menchito, who has been taken into custody 3 times at this point. Even those who have dedicated a great deal of time to the study of El Mencho are unable to come to a consensus over the first name that he goes by. Some claim it's Nemesio, while others think it's Ruben. The history in law enforcement would make sense, though, considering the specific techniques he employs and his desire to wage war against the government, according to experts. Despite the fact that the drug trade in Mexico has been there for a very long time, there has been a significant and potentially lethal change to the balance of power in the country during the last 15 years. According to Meade, when Mexico had a political system with just one party, the federal government had more leeway in negotiating deals with criminal organizations known as cartels. The government assured the cartels that they would not interfere with their operations as long as its agents received their portion of the profits. This was the typical way that the transaction was conducted. However, in the year 2000, the political system began to allow for the existence of many parties, which increased the cartel's degree of influence. Now, according to Meade, it is the drug cartels that determine the conditions of the transaction, rather than the government charging those who traffic drugs. Additionally, they have modified the ways in which they use violent behavior. Murder as a tactic. Meade believes that murder is now used as a tactic to intimidate local governments and people into submission. Murder is no longer used as a method of concealing the black market from the general public. The organization Human Rights Watch estimates that between the years 2006 and 2012, around 60,000 individuals were killed in Mexico, a death toll that El Mencho is only contributing to by increasing its activities. According to Mexican officials, his men were responsible for the murder of 15 Jalisco police officers not too long before the event with this chopper. When you search for cjng on YouTube, you will find horrific films that the group is responsible for, including recordings of people being killed and tortured. A video. Nothing can compare to the day when El Mencho's cjng reportedly slaughtered 35 members of Los Zetas, a competing gang some years before. Before finally taking their victims' lives, members of the cartel subjected them to horrific acts of torture, such as amputating limbs and chopping off ears. According to the claims that were published in the media, the mangled remains of the victims were thrown on the highway during rush hour. The events of the previous several years have shown that combating drug cartels is analogous to playing a lethal game of whack-a-mole. If the Sinaloa cartel led by El Chapo were to be destroyed, a new and even more dangerous monster would emerge in its stead. As a point of fact, it would seem that El Mencho has taken the time to reflect on and correct the errors committed by his high-profile predecessor, all the while maintaining his position as a shadow in an already murky underworld. And as the authorities refocus their efforts on capturing El Chapo, it's probable that El Mencho's influence will continue to wane as it continues to grow. According to Reed, El Chapo's breakout may have purchased El Mencho some more time to be at large. That's all for this video. Like it and share it with your friends. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and thanks for watching.